There are certain places you visit where, after a few days, you realize that nothing you are seeing is improvised. You walk down a street or you step into a lobby, and you get this distinct feeling that the decisions made here were not made in a rush. They weren't made to solve a sudden crisis or to patch over a mistake. They appear to fit within a framework that has been there for a very long time. I have been thinking about Copenhagen in this way. It isn't a flashy place. It doesn't try to dazzle you with scale or noise. But there is a profound sense of order that seems to seep out of the pavement itself. It's the kind of order that doesn't feel restrictive, but rather settled. Like a house where everything has a specific drawer, and everyone living there knows exactly where to find what they need. When you observe how the financial life of this city operates, you see that same quality. It is quiet, it is deliberate. You don't get the sense that anyone is making things up as they go along. I suppose that is what true governance looks like when you strip away the textbooks and the policy papers. It stops being a set of rules that people have to memorize, and it becomes a way of behaving. It becomes a rhythm. You notice it in the way people speak to one another in professional settings here. There is a calmness in the conversation. I think that calmness comes from a lack of ambiguity. When everyone knows the path and everyone agrees on the path, there is no need to shout, there is no need for drama. You simply walk the path together. It makes you realize how much energy is wasted in other places just trying to figure out what the rules are today. Here, the rules are the same as they were yesterday. And because of that, people can focus on the work itself rather than worrying about whether the floor is going to shift beneath them. This creates a very specific kind of confidence. It isn't the loud, brash confidence of a gambler who thinks he can beat the odds. It is the quiet confidence of an engineer who knows the bridge will hold because the calculations were checked 3 times. In the financial world here, that checking isn't seen as a burden. It seems to be viewed as a necessary part of the craft. Like a carpenter measuring the wood before making a cut, you don't measure because you are afraid. You measure because you want the pieces to fit. And here, the pieces always seem to fit. There is a tremendous value in that, especially as you get older. You stop looking for excitement in your systems. You stop wanting to be surprised by your bank or your investments. You start to value the beauty of a predictable outcome. I've watched meetings here where the most important thing wasn't who had the cleverest idea, but whether the idea aligned with the established way of doing things. In some parts of the world, that would be seen as stiff or resistant to change. But here, it feels like protection. It protects the institution from the whims of a single person. It protects the collective from the mistake of the individual. It's interesting to watch how this affects trust. Trust is a word we use a lot, but we rarely stop to think about how it is actually built. It isn't built by making big promises. It is built by repetition. It is built by doing the small, boring things correctly, over and over again, until people stop checking to see if you did them. The institutions here have that kind of credibility. It has been earned through decades of showing up and doing exactly what was expected. Nothing more, nothing less. Just the steady delivery of the promise. When you walk along the canals, watching the water move, it feels very similar to the flow of commerce here. The water is contained, it has walls, it has direction, it isn't wild, and because it is contained, it is useful. It carries boats, it connects the city. The governance here acts like those canal walls. It isn't the water itself, it isn't the money or the transactions, but it is the structure that allows the flow to happen safely. And most of the time, you don't even look at the walls. You just enjoy the fact that the water isn't flooding the street. That is the trick, I think. When the system works truly well, the governance becomes invisible. You don't see the heavy hand of authority. You just see a lack of friction. You see things happening on time. You see agreements being honored. It's a very distinct atmosphere. It lacks the static of conflict. In places where the rules are unclear, you always feel a tension in the air, a sense that someone is trying to get away with something. Here, the air feels clear. It feels honest. Not because people are inherently better, perhaps, but because the system makes it very difficult to be anything else. Clarity reduces conflict. It is such a simple idea. If we both know exactly what is expected of us, we are unlikely to fight. We might disagree on the details, but we won't disagree on the process. And this city seems to have mastered the process. It is a slow, methodical mastery. It doesn't happen overnight. It is the result of generations of people deciding that order is better than chaos. I find it very reassuring to be in a place where the adults are clearly in charge. And not just any adults, but thoughtful, careful adults. People who read the fine print, people who keep the records. There is a sense of stewardship. That is a word that fits well here. Stewardship. The idea that you are not the owner of the institution, but merely its caretaker for a period of time. Your job is not to loot it or to reinvent it for your own glory. Your job is to hand it over to the next person in slightly better condition than you found it. That mentality changes everything. It changes how you assess risk. If you are a steward, you don't take wild gambles. You preserve, you maintain, you look at the long horizon, not just the next quarter. You can see this in the architecture of the old stock exchange or the headquarters of the major firms. They are solid. They are built of brick and stone. They look like they were designed to weather the winter. And the winters here can be long. Perhaps that is part of it. When you live in a climate that requires you to be prepared, you learn the value of preparation. You learn that you cannot talk your way out of a storm. You have to have a roof that holds. So the financial culture adopts that same resilience. It builds good roofs. It makes sure the windows are sealed. It prepares for the storm before the clouds even gather. This creates a stillness in the markets here that is quite rare. Even when the rest of the world is in a panic, there is a tendency here to pause, to look at the framework, and to trust that the measures in place will work. And usually, they do. It is not exciting. I suspect some people would find it incredibly dull, but dullness is a luxury. Being bored by your financial system is one of the greatest privileges you can have. It means you are safe. I was sitting in a cafe the other day, just watching the people cycle past, hundreds of them. And what struck me was how everyone stayed in their lane. There were no police blowing whistles, there were no barriers. Everyone just followed the system because the system works. If you follow the lane, you get home. If you weave in and out, you cause a problem. That social contract, that unwritten agreement to behave responsibly, extends all the way up to the boardrooms. It is the same mindset. You stay in the lane, you follow the protocol. Not because you are afraid of being punished, but because it is the sensible thing to do. And when everyone does the sensible thing, the cumulative effect is powerful. It creates a society and an economy that is incredibly efficient. No energy is wasted on cleaning up messes because the messes are rarely made in the first place. I think about the word accountability. It's often used as a threat. You will be held accountable. But here, It feels more like a description of reality. You are accountable simply because everything is recorded, everything is visible, and everything is tracked. There is no place for secrets to hide. When you operate in the sunlight, you tend to behave better, and the governance here ensures that the curtains are always open. It's a quiet sort of rigor. It doesn't shout, it doesn't pound the table, it just sits there, patiently waiting for things to be done correctly. And it has all the time in the world. There is a comfort in knowing that the people managing the wealth of the nation are checking the details, that they are dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We live in a world that is often sloppy, often hurried. To find a pocket of the world that values precision is a relief. It allows you to relax. You realize that you don't have to be vigilant because the system is vigilant for you. I've noticed that this approach attracts a certain kind of person. It repels the reckless. The cowboys don't like it here. There is too much paperwork, too many checks, but it attracts the thoughtful. It attracts the people who like to build things that last. And so over time, the culture reinforces itself. The careful people hire other careful people. The systems that work are strengthened. The deviations are corrected gently, but firmly. It is like a garden that has been tended for 300 years. The hedges are straight not because someone cut them aggressively yesterday, but because someone has trimmed them a little bit every week for centuries. That is what governance is, really. It is the gardening. It is the constant, small acts of maintenance that keep the structure sound. And in Copenhagen, the gardening never stops. It happens in the quiet offices on rainy Tuesday afternoons. It happens in the back rooms where the audits are reviewed. It happens in the thoughtful pauses before a contract is signed. It creates a continuity that is very soothing to the soul. You get the sense that if you left and came back in 20 years, the essential nature of the place would not have changed. The names might be different, the technology might be newer, but the underlying philosophy would be exactly the same. We adhere to the rules because the rules protect us. We respect the process because the process yields good results. There is no magic to it. That is the most refreshing part. There is no secret formula that only the geniuses understand. It is just consistency. It is just the refusal to cut corners. As the daylight fades here and the city settles down, you can almost feel that machinery humming in the background, the machinery of order. It isn't loud, it's just a steady, low vibration. It's the sound of ledgers balancing, the sound of decisions being documented, the sound of a promise being kept. You can walk home through these streets and feel entirely at ease. The cobblestones are uneven, perhaps, but the institutions are level. They are not tilting. And in a world that feels like it is constantly tilting, constantly sliding toward the edge, finding a place that stands level is something to cherish. It allows you to think about other things. It frees your mind. You don't have to worry about the foundation of the house, so you can focus on living in it. The lights come on in the windows, glowing warm against the gray evening. And inside those rooms, the work continues quietly, methodically. There is no rush to finish because the work is never really finished. It is a cycle, a loop of observation and correction, observation and correction. It keeps going. The trust accumulates layer by layer, like the patina on the copper roofs. It gets stronger with age. It becomes part of the landscape, and the system simply carries on, functioning, steady, reliable, without needing to say a word.